Governor Christie made some headlines recently when he called out GOP Republicans for posting or postponing a vote on disaster aid for Sandy victims. Governor Christie, good morning. It's good to have you.
Hey, good morning, Matt.
Good timing also. Time magazine last night bumped someone off the cover of their magazine. They put this face on the cover of this week's issue with the headline, "The Boss." Now, with all due respect to the guy we both like, Bruce Springsteen, that's not what they're referring to. They're referring to the fact that this is your time to take the reins of the Republican Party. You going to do it?
I'm going to be governor of New Jersey. That's my job. And the only reason you get this attention is if you're doing your job well and you're being an advocate for the people that elected you. And that's all this is about. It's not about me trying to take control of anything other than take care of the people who elected me.
But you're not happy, it seems, with the course of the Republican Party right now. You blasted some Republicans in Congress last week after their inaction over Hurricane Sandy. You said they showed callous indifference, selfishness, duplicity. They were practicing toxic politics. Strong letter to follow. Those aren't the words of a guy who's happy with his party.
No, because Sandy is and was above politics in every other element except for what happened in the Congress a week ago. And so what I was trying to point out very clearly was there are people suffering in New Jersey, there are people suffering in New York, and they need to be taken care of. Remember this, Matt. We've now waited 7 times longer than the victims of Katrina waited for federal aid.
But
right.
But are you happy with the course of the Republican Party right now? Do you think it's headed in the right direction?
Matt, we've lost 2 national elections in a row. I'd say the answer is no.
Okay, good. So
you're in politics to win, to get your ideas forward. We've lost 2 national elections in a row. We need to be thinking about doing something different.
Republicans are going to have to deal with the issue of guns, as are all Americans, and Democrats included. You've called for a national discussion on guns and mental health. Let me take you back to 1995. You were running for the General Assembly in your state, and you went out and you distributed campaign flyers supporting a ban on assault weapons. Were you supporting the state ban on assault weapons or a federal ban on assault weapons?
State. And
you said of your opponents pledged to repeal that ban that it was dangerous, crazy, and radical. Would you take the next step now in the wake of all these shootings and say that it's dangerous, crazy, and radical for the federal government not to step up and create a ban on assault weapons?
What I say is that the states need to make some of these decisions like we've made in New Jersey. We have the 2nd toughest gun laws in America, only behind the state of New York. But I think if all you talk about is that, Matt, you're shortchanging this conversation. This young man in Connecticut was obviously seriously mentally ill. Why do we have such a stigma about mental illness treatment? Why aren't we dealing with substance abuse treatment,
But
Matt?
if the president proposes a federal ban on assault weapons, would you support him?
If that's all he proposes.
If it's part of his plan.
Well, but you got to tell me what the other parts of the plan are. I mean, you can't tell me one sliver of the plan.
Background checks and things like that.
Listen,
smaller magazines for weapons.
Again, all you're focusing on right now is gun control. What about the violence in our video games? You and I both have children. We don't allow those games into our house. We've made that decision because we think it desensitizes our children to the real effects of violence. I mean, the fact is we need to have the conversation about all these things. We had a woman, Matt, in Camden, who decapitated her child and then killed herself high on crack. If we don't deal with the substance abuse issues and the mental illness issues that lead to violence, we're shortchanging this conversation.
Go back one time. If they deal with those issues would you support a federal ban on assault weapons?
Depends on what they do, Matt. My point is
Why not just say yes or no?
Well, because it's not that easy. I mean, I know in a short interview like this, you'd like them to give you pithy answers. But, the fact is these are complicated issues. And my point is I'm willing to have that conversation. Now, that's a lot more than a lot of other people are willing to say. I'm willing to have the conversation, but you've got to deal with these other issues. Otherwise, you're just being political.
In your State of the State address yesterday, you cast New Jersey as the alternative to what you termed the dysfunctional, dispirited, and distrustful government in Washington. I follow New Jersey pretty closely. We're right across the border from you guys, and yet I watch you guys in the legislature there, and they're dealing with the same gridlock over issues like taxes that we're seeing in Washington. Why is New Jersey a better example?
Well, because in divided government in the last 3 years, we've passed a cap on property taxes. We've done meaningful pension and health benefit reform. We've done a new drug rehabilitation program where for first-time offenders, you don't get sentenced to jail, you get sentenced to rehabilitation. We've done a lot of things in this state. I vetoed 3 income tax increases when I had to, so we've had our confrontations when we've had to. But we've done a lot of things.
There's plenty of dysfunction in New Jersey in politics as well.
A lot less than there used to be, Matt. A lot less than there used to be. Because what we're doing is we're finding areas to compromise and work together. And we've done more together than we've had fights in the last 3 years.
Let's talk about compromise. We are barreling toward fiscal cliff part 2, all right, the sequel to what we've just seen. Some people say the debate coming up could be worse over the debt ceiling and spending. Do you want to see the Republican Party stand firm and refuse to raise the debt ceiling until there are severe, dramatic and severe spending cuts? Keeping in mind, the last time we debated this, the credit rating of the United States was lowered. Are you willing to risk that again?
Listen, what I think we need to do is stand firm on getting some real significant spending reductions. We've now done what the president wanted to do. He wanted to raise taxes on the highest earning Americans, and Republicans have now acquiesced to that. Now it's time for the president to stand up and say, here's what I'm going to do on spending. He hasn't done it. He needs to do it. And if he's going to be a credible partner and compromiser, then he's going to have to step up and do those things too.
And do Republicans refuse to raise the debt limit if those spending cuts are not deep enough?
I tell you, we've got a bunch of different options at our disposal. You have the continuing resolution coming up in March. You have a number of other things that you can do. That includes the debt ceiling, but my point is you got to get to the table and start working now. If we wait until the week or so before to actually start talking to each other, we're not going to get it done.
You forged a nice relationship with the president in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. You guys hit it off. There was that bromance that everyone talked about. Yeah. Do you have a continuing relationship? Do you have his ear? Might you be of some use as he approaches congressional Republicans over this debate?
Hey, listen, I don't offer my advice to the president in that way. I mean, what I've dealt with the president on is Hurricane Sandy, and that's what the nature of our relationship is. He's not calling me, Matt, like at 11 o'clock at night going, hey, Chris, what do you think about this? It's not the way the relationship works, okay? So the fact is, I'll continue to speak out publicly about the things that I think are important, and anybody in Washington, D.C. who wants to come to New Jersey and see some of the stuff we're doing, how I'm working with the Democratic legislature to try to bring compromise and consensus. I mean, the things that are happening in New Jersey, the fact that 61% of New Jerseyans think their state is moving in the right direction is testimony to the fact that they think their government is working. And that's what we're doing. And anybody who wants advice in Washington on that, I think myself and Steve Sweeney and Sheila Oliver, the Democrats who run the legislature, we're happy to run a seminar for them.
You end with a pithy answer. I like it. Governor Christie, always good to see you.
Great to see you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's get a check of the morning.